it's also a promise of Jesus Christ to us. As I continue to read through the post-resurrection passages in the Gospel of John, it says in John chapter 20 that the disciples were gathered in one place behind locked doors, fearful of the Jewish leaders. They were locked behind closed doors and fearful. Now, they might have been scared of the Jewish leaders because the Jewish leaders may have thought that the disciples had stolen Jesus' body and were faking this resurrection story, but it's also very likely that the disciples were scared of the Jewish leaders because the Jewish leaders associating them with Jesus may end up wanting to treat them in the same way they treated Jesus. And so the disciples are not only fearful, I'm sure they're full of anxiety, and they're not sure of what their future holds. There's a matter of uncertainty for them. They don't know what their next day, what their next week. A matter of fact, it says that 8 days after the resurrection, they were still gathered behind locked doors, fearful. And so they didn't know what their future was going to hold. And their emotions, their very state is much like the one we find ourselves in today. We're staying behind closed doors, not because we're fearful of authorities coming and tracking us down, but we do have this fear of a virus that is attacking many people's bodies and can lead to death. And so there is certainly a fear in this time of COVID-19 crisis. There's plenty of anxiety and stress, and we certainly don't know what our next week looks like. We don't know what our next months look like. And for some of us, that's an issue because we like to be in control of our lives. And right now, it's hard to think that we're in control. There's a lot of unknowns for us. So we find ourselves in a very similar place as the disciples post-resurrection. But yet, Jesus had prepared them for this moment. In the farewell discourses, John 14 through 17, Jesus is talking to them and preparing them for not only his leaving, but the situations that they might face. And I want to draw your attention to his words in John chapter 16. And they'll appear on the screen here now, but there's also a few words just prior to this verse that I'm going to read for you. Jesus says to the disciples, he says, "A time is coming when you will be scattered, each of you to your own home, and you will leave me all alone. Yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. Now I have told you all these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." In this world you will have trouble, you will have fear and anxiety and stress. But take heart, he says, I've overcome the world. Are you looking for peace today in these times? I say turn to Jesus Christ in these times and find the peace that he and only he can bring. He is the answer to our struggles, and he wants to walk with us through these times of stress and anxiety, and he wants to guide us. So rest in the peace that only he can bring to this situation. And may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of his Spirit at work in you. And may you have peace in his name. Amen.